Somebody. Caleb told me he had it, but he ain't have it. Let me get the mouse out. No problem. I got you. You consent to being live streamed.
Multitask.
All terms and conditions.
Yeah.
Got it. You got that water filter?
Green, so he can see what's happening on this side. On his side. We're working on that. We're taking some more funds in.
All right. Before the class count gets too much momentum going, I'm gonna go ahead and get the thing started.
Right. Did they hear you? They hear you good?
I don't know. I sound crazy. Testing. 1, 2. Now you done turn me off. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Testing.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right. I don't know.
You get the kind that tells us our battery level.
No, the battery's good. You know, the volume levels are actually inside the battery compartment. I don't know. I can't see all that.
It's all right.
You sound good. You sound phenomenal.
You don't count.
You would sound a whole lot better if you was in the room.
I had to cover for somebody at work.
Nah, it's all good. I got a Bobby. All right, so today, today's lesson or discussion is communicating with Yahuah through each other. And Mana, as you can see, this is part 1, which means there'll be a part 2. All right, so let's go over the rules. Please raise your hand and ask a question. Wait to be called on before you answer, as there are hands raised in the room as well as online. Please keep your questions or comment on track with today's lesson. You will have 60 seconds to answer the question or make your statement. If you go past 60 seconds, Caleb will mute you. It is not personal. It is just to give enough time to finish the lesson. The lessons are recorded and must be kept within a certain amount of time. The lesson is mixed with discussion to help build one another up. Please, no one particular person try to abuse the time. All right, so just to recap some basic understandings that I pray we all agree to as we go into today's lessons or discussion. All right, so we can all agree that Yahuah dwells within us, right? All right, we agree. So we experience Yahuah by experiencing each other. We agree. All right. So when I treat you a certain way, I treat Yahuah that same certain way. You all agree? Uh-oh, we gotta wait. Go ahead, Doc. You sure? All right. All right, so let's be mindful of a few verses before we start, right? So Romans 12, 1 through 5. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of Elohim, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, set apart and acceptable to Elohim, which is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of Elohim, what is good and acceptable and perfect. For by the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think with sober judgment. All right, so again, we got to have this understanding going in. We'll say it one more time. I say to everyone among you not to think of himself, I knew he was going to do that, more highly than he ought to think, but to think with sober judgment, each according to the measure of belief that Yahuah has assigned. For as in one body we have many members, and the members do not all have the same function. So we through many are one body in Yahushua, and individually members of one another. All right? Everybody agree? All right, that goes with the other things we agreed to, correct? All right. So let's be mindful of this other thing. Galatians 5, 22 to 26. But the fruit of the Ruach is love, cheerfulness, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there is no law. So those are all Tob things, right? Just like the other slides, we all agree with these, right? All right, so be sure we're all on the same page going in. And those who belong to Yahushua have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. So if we therefore, after we've crucified the flesh, live by the Ruach, let us also keep in step with the Ruach. And let's think of a few things that we should not do. Let's not become conceited, right? Don't get puffed up. We shouldn't be provoking one another or envying one another. So we have all these mindsets and understandings and agreements going in. All right. Okay. All right. So today we're going to focus on righteous conversation. How we're talking to each other, right? I know I could just go back to the last slide. That explains everything, right? Matter of fact, let's go over some of that again. Okay. Cheerfulness, peace, patience, goodness. That love is understood, right? I shouldn't have to tell you about that one, right? Can I get some? Speaking of which, can I get a little bit? Can I get a little grace?
Yes.
Clearly.
Yes.
All right. So, righteous conversations. Remember that when we speak to one another, we're speaking to Yahuah. All right. Goes back to what we all agreed on. That's how we interact with him. So when we're speaking with him, when we're speaking to each other, we should be mindful of that. All right, let's take a look. Let's take a look at Proverbs 17. We might finish this by 6:30 the way, y'all. 17:4-7. An evildoer listens to wicked lips, and a liar gives ear to a mischievous tongue. Whoever mocks the poor insults his maker. He who is glad at calamity will not go unpunished. Grandchildren are the crown of the aged, and the esteem of children is their fathers. But fine speech is not becoming to a fool. Still less is false speech to a prince. All right. So, what's the first thing that we want to avoid? You know, wait, I'm just gonna say, no, get back there. Get back there. The faster you give the correct answers, we can get that off the page. You're not healthy. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. All right. All right. Wicked lips, right? Wicked lips. What about those lips? Now I'm on to rescue me.
Tada, bear with me. So the first thing we want to really avoid also is a mischievous tongue.
First one?
Well, we want to avoid that.
I mean, I left glory up there, but I definitely highlighted wicked. Let's start with wicked. We're gonna get to mischievous. Mischievous is next. Mischievous is absolutely next. All right. So wicked. Maury, help me out. Pronounce that Hebrew word for me. In the microphone. No, this one here. Jeez, you got this.
This Evan, or as they would say in old time, Edwin.
All right. So it's evil, wickedness, iniquity, an act of which there are many kinds, which is morally evil and corrupt, damaging to one's relationship to Elohim and others, according to a standard, right? So when you violate that standard, it could be considered evil.
All right, so you see that, so there's, in this evil here you're referring to, so there's one that's just evil, like Ra. There's one that's just standard evil. This one here is saying, in this particular wickedness, it's also a relationship to Elohim and others.
Others, correct.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. That's definitely not things we want to do, right? We don't want to use our lips to damage our relationship with Yahuah and each other, right? It does happen. All right, the next one, like Naamana said for us, was the mischievous tongue. All right, Hawa. Evil. So Aliyah, you have a hand. Go ahead.
Shalom. I just wanted to ask very briefly. So Maury said the Ra is standard. Is that standard towards Yahuah, or is that standard towards our Mishpachah or other people?
Right. So Ra is just standard word for just. It's an overall word for evil. So meaning that you can be evil directly to your brother. You can be evil technically to Yah's word. But the other one is saying you're doing it at the same time. When you do it to your brother, you're doing it to Yah. That's the difference.
Torah.
All right. So mischievous tongues, an evil desire, wicked cravings, or strong or bad yearnings, right? So a liar gives ear to mischievous tongues for evil desires, giving you the reason why somebody would do this, right? They're doing this for their desire, for their personal cravings, about them and what they can get out of it. All right? We don't want to do that. We also don't want to mock the poor. All right.
La'ag.
Okay. Pretty straightforward, right? Scoff, ridicule, words which disparage another as an extension of stuttering or the stammering sounds, right? You don't want to be damaging each other. You don't want to be putting somebody down. If you're in conversation with somebody and you happen to see that they are at fault or they made an error, it's okay to correct them, right? But you don't want to just go around disparaging people, talking bad about them, talking down to them, and not being kind and loving in your communications with them, right? See the difference? All right. Go ahead. We have a hand in the room.
In your communication with them directly and with your communication with others about them?
Oh, we'll get to that.
Okay.
But both, absolutely. Both. All right. Let's look at Proverbs.
Gracious.
Hey, it is what it is. 11, 14. We're going to go to 17 through 19, right? He who loves purity of heart and whose speech is gracious will have the king as his friend. The mouth of forbidden women is a deep pit. He with whom Yahuah is angry will fall into it. And then 17 through 19. Incline your ear and hear the words of the wise, and apply your heart to my knowledge. For it will be pleasant if you keep them within you, if all of them are ready on your lips, that your trust may be in Yahuah. I have made them known to you today, even to you. All right. What word should I have said instead of gracious there? What's that word? In addition to the pronounce that word for me. Yeah. Hard. Good help is so hard to find. Thank you.
Passion. Gracious.
All right, so favor or acts which display one's fondness or compassion for one another, right? So that's how we're supposed to treat each other. Those are the types of things we're supposed to show. Show compassion, show fondness. So much you actually care with somebody in your speech, right? Which would be the opposite of disparaging, right? All right. We also want to have kindness, kind-heartedness, compassion. Again, acts of kindness, displaying one's pleasure with an object. Let's look at this last part here. But now you said it like 17 times. Why should I say it again? All right. So, which benefit the object of the pleasure. So if I find pleasure in you, I'm going to speak to you a certain way. But is it for my benefit? It's directly pleasing you. That's why I'm doing these things. It's not about me, right? Just like our relationship with Yahuah, like I mentioned before, it's not about us. It's about him. So this person that you're talking to, when you're talking to them, your conversation and the things that you're saying to them should not be about you. It should be about them. Go ahead. You didn't raise your hand. No, raise your hand real quick. All right, go ahead.
And one of the things we should recognize is when we do these things, being kind-hearted one to another, showing grace and things like that, that we should be kind of happy that, we are giving Yah the esteem. So our happiness is in Yah when we start illuminating Yah's word in the way we communicate with each other.
Yep. All right, so let's talk about the mouth of this forbidden woman is a deep pit. All right, so let's talk about forbidden, right? All right, let's focus on the word forbidden.
Zor.
Zor, right? It means to be a stranger. In other words, you're not in the main cultural group or an area, and you're estranged from society. So this is a strange person, right? So remember, we spoke about when we treat each other, we got to speak to each other in a way that matches a certain standard. But where does that standard come from?
His word.
Yahuah's word, right? So we all are in agreement and covenant with each other that that's what's going to guide us. So would we be strangers or strange to each other? We shouldn't be, right? We all agree to what that standard is. But when you listen to someone that's forbidden, we can't hold them to the same standard. Would they even know the standard? They're a stranger. They're not of our culture. They're not in our group, right? So you don't want to act that way. Like they say, when you know better, you do better, right? So you know the standard. So you should behave accordingly. I got all this stuff in the back.
I was just talking to my daughter about this today.
And what you say to her? I'm just saying, you back there.
Okay. What I was saying to her is she was talking about somebody at her job, right? And I was telling her the standard that we hold one another to as far as in the walk, that we agree to the covenant and that we walk together in the covenant. So there's an expectation for one another and we hold each other to accountability. But for her and this person at her job, I'm like, she's like, well, Mom, we have the same rules at work. And I'm telling her that this person does not hold themselves accountable to Yahuah's law. If this person, I don't know if it was a he or she actually, held themselves accountable to Yahuah's laws, it would trickle down to how they treat one another, how they treat one another on the job. So this person would not be lying on her and other people on the job because she wouldn't lie, but.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if someone never agrees to thou shalt not lie, can you hold them accountable when they choose to lie? Mm-hmm. No, right? Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Aki.
So I was going to share that, as you're talking about the stranger, those on the outside, but sometimes if we ourselves don't know and we can operate like a stranger or as a stranger because we haven't got that knowledge or that understanding yet. And so that's where the other portion starts to come in, the kindness, the kind-hearted, to try to bring them to a standard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was going to be my comment to that situation. The other person may not know about lying, right? But you also got to remember that when you're interacting with them, you know the standard. You still have to hold yourself to that standard so you can be a light. And they can come around and say, man, I kicked all kinds of dirt in that dude, and he still had my back when I needed him. I wonder why. Because Yahuah said I got to treat you a certain way. So that's why I treated you that way, right? And also, someone should be able to distinguish between the stranger and someone who's from here, right? They shouldn't look at you and go, man, I don't know which one I'm looking at. It should be a clear delineation, right? The stranger should stand out. You see certain people in your hood, they don't belong there, right? They up to no good, right? Do the same thing. Oh, they lost. Yeah, they lost. You're either a narc or a customer, one or the other. You don't belong here. All right, so again, I also wanted to take a quick touch on that word mouth, right? Pay, right? Mouth, opening, mouthful, portion. But in this case, I want you to think of the declaration or command, the actual words that are coming out of this person's mouth, right? So the words that are coming from this strange person is what's causing you trouble, right? All right, let's look at, let me read this thing 6 times before he jump on me again. Proverbs 22:17. Incline your ear and hear the words of the wise, and apply your heart to my knowledge. For it will be pleasant if you keep them with you. Keep what within you? The words of the wise, correct. All right, so if all of them are ready on your lips, that your trust may be in Yahuah, I have made them known to you today. So we know that the words we're talking about, the words of the wise, what does it mean that they are ready on your lips? What's an interpretation someone would have of that? That's an open question. Go ahead, Aki.
Say, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks.
Okay, just make it even plain. Don't even use a verse. Just answer the question. What does that mean? That was a good verse, but make it even plainer from there. They're ready on your lips. What does that mean?
Yeah, in your own words. You don't have to think about it. It's just, it's natural. It just flows naturally.
Right. All right. See, someone in the back was going to mirror the same thing. Anyone else have a different answer? We got one in the room, then I'll come to you, sis.
So, if you keep in the words of the wise in your heart and they're ready on your lips, basically like you're reiterating that same sentiment when you speak. So you speak with wisdom, you speak with the things that you took from the words of the wise.
Mm-hmm. Good. Namana?
Shalom. So the wise man would speak of the goodness out of the words out of his heart, and so it corresponds to the same thing that the evil man would speak of the wicked words out of his heart. So whatever's in your heart, it's going to come out. You're going to speak it. So if you've got a good heart, then those wise words are going to come out naturally. They're just going to flow because you've got the words in your heart.
Hello, yeah. We have a hand in the back in the room. Go ahead, Aki.
I'm looking at is if you're speaking the words of the wise, that means what comes from your lips are kindness, gentleness, and those accolades come out of there to uplift that person.
Yep. All right. I didn't make a slide for this definition or anything like that, but we have some learned people in the room. Learned it. Yep. So when you see that word hear the words of the wise, what's that hear mean?
Shema.
I know that. I know you know that. Somebody else.
You said the learned ones in the room.
That was plural, you know.
Oh, I let
Anybody?
Shema.
I didn't. What does that mean?
Oh.
What does it mean?
To hear.
To hear.
If you give me one word answer.
To hear and obey.
I'm gonna give it.
Go ahead.
It's right. It's to listen. I see. What was your question?
That word hear. What does that mean? Actually, hear someone.
You are paying attention to the person. You're giving them your full attention of what they are saying.
Okay. And how will we demonstrate that?
Go ahead. You got it?
Go ahead, Dumia.
Doesn't it mean you not only hear, but you do? You are to do what you have heard.
All these mics are just
walk it out.
All right, so Eliah, go ahead, and then Namani, you'll be next.
I'm kind of saying the same thing as the Koti Dumia, but I wrote, hear the words to carry out the instructions to its completion.
Good, to its completion, I like that part. Namana?
Shalom, to hearken is to take seriously in what you hear. To hear is to follow up by action, and that is to do. And to do is to understand what you have heard.
Right. So if we're having a conversation, a dialogue, whether it be a debate or whether we're just having a friendly conversation, and I say, hey, did you hear me? And you can, in that second, just repeat back what I said, doesn't necessarily mean you actually heard me, right? Because it's immediate, right? But carrying an act all the way out to completion, stuff that takes time, a few months go by, a week go by, a day go by, years go by, and you can still recall it, now you've actually heard it, right?
Ooh, man,
Okay.
you just said a whole lot. Ooh, wait.
All right. So again, we're advised to listen to the words of wise men and women, and not just listen, but take them in to the point that we repeat these words ourselves. So if I learn something here and I find myself in that same situation, somebody asks me about it months down the line, I don't have to think, man, what would I say? It just comes natural, it flows right off the tongue, right? Go ahead, have a hand in the back. So in agreement with everything that everyone said.
I was just gonna comment on that because that happens to me. It's happened to me a few times. Like when I'm talking to my children, I'll hear myself speaking and I'm like, those sound like Fred Parham's words, that's my daddy. So, and sometimes like even recently since I've been in a walk, I'll be talking to someone, I'll be like, wait a minute, somebody said that to me like a year ago. And I'm repeating it.
Yep. That's what it be. That's what it's like to not be foreign, right? We're similar to each other. We should be communicating the same. We should be going over the same. We should have things with the same understanding, right? So let's take that look at that word Shema, right? We've been here long enough. We're going to look at Shema the same way. We're all going to go in depth into it, right? But if you've been with a different group, they may have a different concept of it, right? Not a right, wrong concept. It's just different. When they go over it, they're going to explain it a different way. Why? Because that's how that group views it, right? That's the examples they use for understanding. If we go over this again, we may all, man, every time I talk to somebody from Path to Yahuah, they all use the same example. Because we're likewise, we're common, right? We're not strangers to each other. Did I see a hand? Okay.
He said he's not coming.
All right, let's also take a look at verse 19. It says that your trust may be in Yahuah. I have made them known to you today, even to you. Something else to be mindful of, right? These words wise that he brought someone to tell us are gifts from Yahuah. But how did he make these gifts known? It was messenger, right? These aren't gifts that we heard from on high. We weren't at the mountaintop and he spoke to us, right? The people that we deal with that give us these wisdom, these wise men and women, are the vessels that he uses, right? So has anyone ever asked for advice on a situation and, days go by, weeks go by, and you're in your quiet time and you just didn't hear the answer? But you brought it to a brother or sister and they gave you the answer. But it didn't come in the package you were expecting. Oh, wait, I was waiting for this dream. I was waiting to hear in my quiet time. But meanwhile, a human in the flesh looked you dead in your eye and gave you the answer to what you're looking for, right? Again, just like last week, how many of us had the Most High come to us and say, your name is no longer Bob, it is now Miyka'al, right? It's not usually how it goes. Most of us, when he talks to us, he's going to use a person to do it. All right? He speaks to us through each other, right? That's a continuing theme for the last several weeks, right? We do need, that means what? Like you said, it means we have to listen to each other. We have to hear each other, right? Hear each other clearly. All right. Let's take a look at Romans 16, 17 through 18. This is something that could interfere with our ability to hear each other. I want us to take deep note of this, all right? Now, Mon, I know you got your pen. You're going to take some awesome notes. Although Mishael has a much larger notebook. He's writing much faster. All right. So, Romans 16, 17. Hey, if I don't bother you, that means I don't like you. So if I bother you, I love you. All right. Romans 16, 17 through 18. I appeal to you, brothers, to watch out for those who cause divisions and create obstacles, contrary to the doctrine that you have been taught. Avoid them. For such persons do not serve our Mashiach, but their own appetites. And by smooth talk and flattery, they deceive the hearts of the naive. All right, so what's the first thing that's italicized and underlined there? Watch out. Watch out. Remember, I did the lesson before. Are you happening to life or is life happening to you, right? You got to be active in these conversations, in these situations you find yourself in. Be on guard, pay attention, right? Watch out for those who cause divisions and create obstacles. And this is what I want us to be mindful of, the techniques that they use to do it. Let's look at 18. Such persons do not serve our Mashiach. They're serving their own appetites, right? That's why they're calling these divisions and these obstacles. And how do they do it? Smooth talk and flattery, that they deceive the hearts of who? the naive, and we will get to a definition of that in a minute. Go ahead, Doc. Ask your question.
Could you expound on the concept of their own appetites?
Sure. So again, you can either, like we talked about before, you can't serve two masters, right? You're either serving the Mashiach or you're serving yourself. So these people, when they come to you, they're not trying to build you up. They're trying to see what they can get out of you. They're not trying to give you the truth. They're trying to get something for their own greedy gain. It's their own appetites. They're trying to feed and nourish themselves. It's all selfish. We talked about that earlier, right? When we're communicating with each other, we want to show fondness and affection for the object of that person we're talking to. It's not about us. These people, it's about them. Selfish motives. And again, they use smooth talk and flattery. Be cautious of smooth talk and flattery. People will tell you what they know you want to hear, and they usually have an ulterior motive behind it, their own appetites. Fact of the matter is, sometimes the truth hurts when you hear it. People ain't going to say something that you like all the time. But you are much better off for hearing it. And again, this is that Shema word, actively participating, listening, and taking it in. Be careful of only hearing, taking in, accepting, and applying what you like. You do not want to do that. I only hear this person because whenever we talk, man, they just tell me such wonderful things about myself. How you going to grow? How you going to get better, right? You got to be able to hear the things that you don't like. When you need correction, you got to be able to hear it. Let's talk about something called confirmation bias. Anyone familiar with the term confirmation bias? If you give me a one-word answer. All right. Confirmation bias.
All right, so confirmation bias, I'm going to give kind of a technical definition.
Yeah.
Basically, it's where you only pay attention to things that confirm something you already believe, but just kind of casually ignore things that go against things you don't believe.
Mm-hmm. Now, I would argue that sometimes it's not casually ignoring. Sometimes it's purposefully ignoring, which is even more dangerous, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you summed it up. Anybody else? All right. Confirmation bias is the tendency to look for information that supports rather than rejects what? One's preconceptions. You already have an idea about what it's supposed to be. So when you're going to look for information, that's what you're looking for. It's typically by what? Interpreting evidence to confirm existing beliefs while rejecting or ignoring any conflicting data. So if you can see something glass half full, glass half empty, if you're a half empty person, you're only going to see it half empty, no matter what the data is telling you. It's information, right? At this point, it's not about an opinion. It is what it is. You got clear information and facts that go against what you thought. So what happens when that happens to you? You have to be willing to change, right? You got to be willing to change. And again, I got this from the American Psychological Association, so we don't get sued. All right. Basically, simple terms, you hear what you want to hear, right? As long as it's flattering to me, as long as it makes me sound good, as long as it's going with what I'm already doing, I'll hear that all day. The moment somebody tells me something otherwise, I'm not listening to that. That's how you get deceived. Because people that have ulterior motives, they know what you want to hear before they get there. That's why they use the words they use. If I put it like this, man, wrapped around my finger. You don't want to do that. That's not a righteous conversation, right? And remember, conversation is two-sided. The people talking and the people receiving. So you have, whichever side you find yourself on, you got an obligation to participate, right? So you cannot be a confirmation bias, someone who only wants to hear the flattering words. Terrible spot to be in. All right, let's look at this word naive. Let's look at this word naive. Because when you find yourself in a place of naivety, that's when you're susceptible to the smooth talk and the flattering words, right? Some Greek word I'm not even going to try to pronounce, right? All right. Yeah, something like that. All right. It often means innocent, right? But I want us to focus on unsuspecting. Unsuspecting. Somebody put unsuspecting in your own words. It's an open question to the room or the internet. I mean, I don't do trick questions. Like,
well, I'm sorry, what was your question?
If you can put that in one word, go ahead, Aki. All right, Aki, go ahead.
Unaware.
In a sense, the awareness part I like. Namana?
I was like, Kaki, I didn't hear your question.
If you, in your own words, what does it mean to be unsuspecting?
Unsuspecting is a person that's innocent, that is a very innocent person of a situation, a person that you wouldn't suspect of doing a certain thing. They're unsuspected, they're innocent.
A little twisted who the subject was a little bit. Yeah. Go ahead, Aki. I'm coming to you next, Nabat.
See, unsuspecting is I don't assume that you're going to do something, or I'm not already preconceived on certain things. So when you come to me, I'm not suspecting you at all. I'm just, it's totally neutral.
Okay, neutral. I like that. Neutral. Good. Nabat?
I was going to say caught off guard.
Caught off guard. Good. Sit in the room. Okay. All right. So as soon as we heard those flattering words and that smooth talk, we let our guards down. We became unsuspecting. That confirmation bias kicked in. We only heard what we wanted to hear without judging it against the standard. We just took it on face value. I ain't got to look no more. Found what I was looking for. That's how you get fooled. Go ahead, Aki.
Well, a lot of times it happens because, like I said, the heart of the naive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I never thought, if it's my first interaction with you, I never thought of you in any other light. So I didn't ever hear or heard of you as a person that would be using substitute. You know what I'm saying? But if I know of you, I've heard of, not that I'm engaged in, but I'm hearing things about this person that it lets me be more suspecting. Why are you coming at me like this? I've seen the way you treated so-and-so, or this person, that person. Now you coming at me, what does you really want? So sometimes it depends on the person's level of knowledge of the other person.
So I would argue that, again, this is just me, and I was working on me with stuff, right? All right. I don't know you, so I'm going to be even more suspectful of you, right? I mean, I don't think anywhere are we supposed to just go around blindly giving every person we run into the benefit of the doubt. Haven't found that chapter and verse yet. So until I do, I ain't doing it. I treat everybody that I meet with, until you prove otherwise, with a little bit of suspicion. Gonna have my guard up. Gonna have my guard up.
Kind of like how sometimes children could be like very impressionable. They accept whatever's given to them.
That's the innocent part. Yep. Hand in the back.
Can you explain what have your guard up looks like?
I would say that having your guard up means that you're going to try the spirit by the spirit, ruach by the ruach. I'm sorry. That you're going to hear things and judge it against the standard. I'm always going to have my guard up. I'm never going to take anything at face value. And if I don't know you, I might not even believe what you're saying to me. Right? I'm going to say, you know what? That's what you said, but is that really what you meant? Until you proved yourself to be trustworthy. Right? But again, we tend to give the benefit of the doubt if we like what we hear, right? Say you car broke down. You need 4 new tires. And they give you this sweet deal. Man, you'll say yes to that deal so fast, you're not going to go, okay, when they get that thing up on the rack, what else are they going to tell me is wrong with my car? Because you like the deal you got. You let your guard down. 4 tires for $57? Let's go. Come on now. Somebody gives you that much flattery, run, right? Deal sounds too good to be true. It usually is. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about. We're not making this complicated, right? Now, Monica, go ahead, please.
No, it's okay, Aki. I got it. It's okay.
Okay. Go ahead, sis.
So would that fall along in the book of Sharat 6:7, where it says, if thou wouldst get a friend, prove him first, and be not hasty to credit him? That would fall.
Yeah, absolutely. Being a believer doesn't mean that you got to be gullible through your whole life. The two are not synonymous. Yeah, we did a study. I don't remember whose lesson it was. We went over meekness, right? Meekness does not mean be a sucker, right? All right. So there's another word of caution about that word naive. All of us could be naive. A lot of times it comes with this connotation that it's got to deal with stupidity, right? You're so naive. How you fall for that? It wasn't about intellect. It's not about indication or intellect. You can be naive whether you have an elementary school education or you have a 6-time PhD. Because it's not about your intellect. It's about whether or not you kept your guard up. That's what we mean by naive. It's not about how smart you are. If someone calls you naive, don't necessarily mean they're calling you stupid or dumb, right? You just put your guard down, right? All right, so let's think about some must-haves for a righteous conversation. And it's going to tie back to character and motives. These things must be involved in a righteous conversation. Now, it's a larger list than this, but we're just going to focus on a few things, right? All right, so to have a righteous conversation, we must be able to have an open dialogue with one another. If two people go into it and one of them isn't open, it's no longer a righteous conversation. It's just not. I'm sorry, I didn't make up the rules. This is the way it is, all right? This requires us to do what? First thing, to be a good listener. What do you mean by a good listener? It means listen to learn, right? Some of us, I mean, I've done this myself 1,000 times. I'm not innocent in this at all. But you're not listening to attack, right? And you're righteously judging what you hear. There's no confirmation bias. I'm judging what you told me against the standard, right? I'm not just going, that sounded nice, I'm going to automatically believe it. I'm righteously judging what I hear. That's involved in a righteous conversation, right? It sounds a little harsh sometimes, but righteousness ain't easy, right? But everybody would do it. All right, the next thing, this requires us to establish a character within ourselves that when we speak to someone, like we mentioned earlier, we're doing so for their benefit and not ours. It's not about us. If I'm going in this conversation for what I can get out of it, automatically unrighteous. Automatically unrighteous. Eject, get out as fast as you can, right? It's not about us. We should be trying to benefit others, okay? All right, again, 1 Thessalonians 5:11, therefore encourage one another and build one another up, right? That's what we're supposed to be doing. 1 Corinthians 14:26, what then, brothers, when you come together, each one has a hymn, a lesson, a revelation, a tongue, or an interpretation, but let all things be done for building up. So I don't care what kind of conversation you're having. I don't care what you're talking about. If it's choir rehearsal, if it's a lesson that you're putting together, if somebody gave you a dream, whatever the situation is, whatever conversation you're having, those are the rules that should apply, right? You can't say, well, we were only talking about this, we were only talking about that, so the rules didn't apply. It's not how that goes, right? All right, some more things we want to watch out for, right? Ephesians 4:29-32. Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give some word to those who hear. And do not grieve to set up our Ruach of Yahuah, by whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you, along with all malice. Shut up. Be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, as Yahuah and Yahushua forgave you. That was directed to someone in the room for those online, and he knows exactly who he is and what he did. All right. So we're talking about corrupting talk, right? It's rotten. It's worthless, right? It doesn't serve anybody. It's no good. It's no good. Sapros in the Greek, okay? It's bad. It's corrupt. I've been in front of a room a time or two. You know, sometimes when the kid that's cutting up ain't paying attention, got to get in while you're fitting. All right. So let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you, along with malice. In case anyone wants to know what bitterness or wrath or anger or other ways to say these words, what they might mean, we're going to go over them. All right. First one we're going to talk about is bitterness. It does literally mean like to be bitter, like the taste, but it also has a connotation of poison. poison, right? You don't want to have poisonous talk. You've corrupted the conversation. It's no longer a righteous conversation, right? All right, the next one is thumos. It's passion, fierceness. That's what they mean by wrath. Fierceness, indignation, wrath. You want to avoid wrath. All right, kroge, which is anger. It's an outcry. A notification is to be in tumult. I'm sorry, this is clamor. Everyone knows what anger is. Tumult, it's an outcry. Like you don't want to have every single conversation be this screaming and yelling match, right? It's okay to disagree, to figure things out, work things out in a calm way. Everything doesn't have to be at 100 degrees all the time, right? Ooh, this one. Slander, blasphemia, vilification, especially against who? Each other? Well, how can I blast Elohim if I'm talking to you? Oh, because Elohim is in the person I'm talking to. So when I treat you that way, I've treated him that way. All right? A whole new definition for blasphemy. All right, show of hands. I got both up. How many of us have blasphemed the Most High before? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You done slandered, you done slandered, you done slandered. It's okay. I'm your dad. I forgive you. But you did it. All right? All right. Yeah, exactly. We're all sorry. We didn't realize that we were doing that, right? If we knew that it was on that level, we would probably talk a little differently, right? But again, but now everyone has heard this, and we've taken it in, and we're going to put it into action, and we're going to do better going forward, right? So I do apologize that on Judgment Day you are now accountable. I apologize. My fault. It is what it is. All right. Kakia. This is depravity. This is malice. Malice. Depravity. Trouble. Evil, malice, naughtiness, and just straight up wickedness. All those other things summed up into one. You don't want to go there. Right? All right. Another part that we play in having righteous conversations. And I want us to be mindful of this, right? And you're gonna notice a lot of times when I do this, I try to say we, because I'm just as guilty as everybody else, right? So please be mindful of that when we're saying these things. Remember last week, we spoke about walking in the character of your name, right? And one of the names we went over was Abdiel, who's a servant of El. Now, consider this. Do we want to talk slanderously and recklessly in the presence of someone who has dedicated their whole life to serving Yahuah El? Is that the kind of person we want to be doing these things in front of? How might they react to what they hear when you do this? Someone that's righteous, someone who says, my entire life is dedicated to serving Yahuah, but I heard this type of speech, this unrighteous speech. How might they react to that? It's an open question. This one might be a little bit of a trick question, but it's still an open question. Now, Mana, go ahead.
Sika, that this person is speaking blasphemy.
Repeat that, please.
That this person is speaking blasphemy. This is an evil person. They're speaking untruth. This person is not to be trusted.
So you're saying that that's what they're going to shout about this person? That's how?
No. That's not what I'm saying. If, for example, if someone is saying that they love the Father and all this kind of stuff, and the next thing you know, I hear all this unclean speech that's coming out of their mouths, I'm like, wow, you're speaking blasphemy. You know, you're speaking unclean words. I wouldn't want nothing to do with them.
All right, so you might let them know what they're doing. Is that safe to say?
Absolutely.
You call them out on it?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Say that in the microphone, somebody.
He said Leviticus 5:1. That's Torah.
That's Torah.
All right, that's what you're supposed to do, right? Somebody in the room mentioned that's Leviticus 5:1. That's what you're supposed to do, right? All right. So again, to answer the second one, that is the righteous response to such speech. Remember the role or place of a servant, right? Because again, we're saying this if it was in the presence of Abdiel, someone who's walking in that character. Could a true servant let this behavior slide or be a part of it even if they wanted to?
No, he's a servant
If you're the servant and that's the character you're walking in, you couldn't let it slide if you wanted to. Go ahead, Aki.
Now, this also comes to the level of maturity and understanding or knowledge, right? So if you don't have, you desire to do something and you're not aware of what's going on, you're naive at the time, and you hear it and you feed into it. Now, once you realize you're wrong, you go back and you correct it and say, hey, that conversation you had wasn't right. You should have done that way. And I want to get my part in it right. Once you realize you did something wrong, you correct yourself. You're going through the process that Torah has laid out for us.
Right. None of us come out of the womb fully developed. None of us come out of that water fully developed, right? So you don't just walk up and, oh, I'm in my full character of the name I've chosen. It's not as works, right? You got to build up to it, right? But once someone who's walking in that full character, they're held accountable to it. So if this Abdiel person, I'm calling myself Abdiel, I've been walking in it 5, 6, 17 years. When that scribe comes with that scroll, remember that conversation and you just let it ride. That person carried away for the next 10 years doing that because you didn't check him on it. Right? Remember, he operates to us, through us. All right? You literally have an obligation to fix it. So again, consider ourselves. Are people comfortable having unrighteous conversations around us? I don't need answers. Just answer for yourself. Are we comfortable participating in these conversations ourselves? This is the dangerous part, though. The dangerous part. Are we comfortable hearing them, but telling ourselves it's okay as long as we don't join the conversation? I mean, I didn't do it, so I'm good. But you let it happen all around you, right? It's not a good spot to be. All right. So Zechariah 8:14-17. For thus says Yahuah of hosts, as I purposed to bring disaster to you when your fathers provoked me to wrath, and I did not relent, says Yahuah of hosts. So again, I have purpose in these days to bring good to Jerusalem and to the house of Yehudah. Fear not. These are the things that you shall do. So these are things we're not supposed to do? Well, we probably should be doing these things, right? Speak the truth to one another. Now remember, none of us seek out to be liars, right? When do we have a hard time telling someone the truth? Go ahead, Abby.
People have the hard time telling the truth when they're going to tell on themselves or when they're going to hurt your feelings.
But again, it ain't about my feelings, right? I got to be able to hear words that hurt. In order for me to tell you the truth, it might hurt, but I'm obligated to do so. All right? I forgot where I was, excuse me. All right. These things you shouldn't do. Speak the truth. Render in your gates what? Judgments that are true and make for peace. Typically, truth and peace will go together, right? But again, you have to make judgments. You can't just take stuff at face value just because it sounds good, just because it's easier that way, right? Judgments lead to peace. Not confronting stuff might lead to peace in the moment, but it's not going to lead to true peace. You got to be able to judge the conversations you're having. And if someone has not done the right thing, you got to be able to say so. Let's say that you two, well, there's 3 of you, right? And you're having a conversation because 2 of them have an ought. And you're trying to help them solve it out. But neither one of them really got to the root of the matter. There really was a conclusion. Like, they're not yelling at each other right now. So, we're done. Let's stop the conversation right now. Was that a righteous and fruitful conversation? No. But it was easier, right? I had peace for a hot second. Good. But do the 2 of them really have shalom with each other? No, right? You got to go through the judgments at times and make sure that it's a true judgment, and that's going to make for peace. Right? Do not devise evil in your hearts against one another. That should be pretty straightforward, I hope. All right, I see people nodding their heads. So what does that mean? Tricked you. All right. Why don't you start? Both of y'all shook your heads. So, Dumia, you start. There's no right or wrong answer. There's no trick questions. All right. When it says devise evil in your hearts against one another, what does that mean? We don't want to do that. What would that look like, devising evil in our hearts?
Well, maybe I'm
thinking devise, conceive evil in your heart, or basically in your mind about what I'm going to do, what I'm going to say, how I'm going to confront this, or I'm not going to talk to him, different, to think of a plan of what you're going to do to confront that.
Right. We've already planned it out. Some of us make mistakes and errors because our foot slips to the left or to the right. And some of us just meant to do that. That's what we're talking about here. You put it in your heart to just plan against each other, right? All right. Go ahead.
Do it always happen that way? You might be at ease, you might be at peace, and it just come up on you.
Give me an example. I'm with you. Give me a good example. Let's keep going down the track.
How can I say that? I'm okay. I'm gonna put it like, I'm gonna give you a scenario.
Perfect.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
The clock starts when the story starts.
Okay. It starts when it's get again. Okay.
She's being interfered with, so we're giving some non-grace to her clock here.
For instance, I may come up on someone and they are talking negative about someone else. And if you are telling, I'm hearing this and I know this other person. First thing come in my mind, there's an ought somewhere. Somebody don't like somebody. That is my time to turn around, have a conversation with that person. Say, I heard you. I heard the conversation. I heard you. The conversation. I think you're wrong about that person. Then I don't know how to go from there to the next place. Where do I take and say, you two come here? Okay.
All right. So again, that's not devising evil, right? That's not related to the specific topic we're talking about right now. It was the one we talked about earlier, though. So again, you pull one of them to the side, the one whose ear you probably have, right? And say, hey, I saw what's going on there. Y'all aren't quite right. Let's not let that slide. Let's try to find a place and a time to work on that. That is what you would want to do.
Yep. So I would say basically, if you hear it, as Deborah talking about, do a diligent inquiry as to what's happening, what's being said, why is this being done? Like you said, if you say, hey, I know there's an ought, but you may not have all the details of that ought. So you say, hey, listen, you brought this to my awareness. Now I have to go seek out a resolve to make sure that Yah gets esteemed, that the honor is restored in Yah, but also is restored in you. Because if we're still in the theme here that Yah dwells in us, at this very moment, is Yah dwelling in one of you guys while you're doing this?
Namana?
Shalom, Aki. So devising evil is plotting and planning to harm those that are, in your mishpachah. You got some schemes that you're thinking up in your mind to hurt those people, which is something, if we're walking with the Father and everything, that's a no-no. Those things should never ever come up in our thoughts. And if it does, they need to be rebuked immediately, because that's not from the Father.
I agree. I mean, go ahead, Aki. Toda.
Devising also is when you had a disagreement with someone, and now you're going about trying to get other people on your side about the situation. So you're literally not being aware that this is what you're doing.
And sometimes you are.
Sometimes
you just love everybody. Yes. Everybody get a pass.
Hey.
Now, sometimes you're doing it on purpose.
I don't want to just say blanket everybody's, I don't suspect, but I'm saying, hey, Sometimes they do. Sometimes because you'll know it. Per you say that person is always doing this particular thing, coming to people trying to sow this discord. So, that's one of the things about it. If you're trying to get people on your side about the situation, then you have to recognize that. Why are you coming to me about that? Did you talk to them directly? And now you done been brought into something that you didn't want to be involved in. And, then it gets bigger and bigger. And bigger.
That's that judgment you got to use, right? That's the judgment you got to use. Because again, you got to roll in both parts. The person speaking and the person's being brought to. You got to, when somebody brings it to you, you got to roll on how to receive it or not receive it or rebuke it.
And they got to be careful that sometimes when you do that, a lot of times how we win them over is we give them scripture.
Oh yeah.
And then once we give them the scripture, they gravitate over to your side because that's what the words say, right? But they still haven't heard the other side.
The other side.
See, so be careful when they start getting this. You're trying to get all these people on your side because at the end of the day, we're not here to create a gang to beat up this other person.
Yeah. Go ahead, about.
A lot of this, the theme of what we're talking about overall seems to correlate to the wilderness with our people and how a lot of people, there was a Korah, and they brought an assembly together to come against Moshe and Aaron, and they murmured, and they was doing it against Moshe, but really they was blaspheming against Yahuah. So, a lot of this stuff is connected to that.
Yeah, nothing new under the sun. They was doing it then, we still doing it now. Yeah, but we got their witness of how it ended for them, so we should stop the pattern, right? Right. All right, so all those things I hate, declares Yahuah. So he hates those things. Who else would he hate? No. He hates those things. All these things I hate. What else would he hate? Say it in the microphone, Mr. No one word answer.
People doing them.
He hates the ones doing it, right? Naman.
And he also hates a lying tongue.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So, to be continued. A clue of what we'll discuss next week. Micah 4:5. All the peoples walk in the name of its mighty one, but we will walk in the name of Yahuah, our Elohim, forever and ever. All right, just a little breadcrumb of what we might be talking about next week. Go ahead, Aki.
Since we talking about name, it's speaking about the character that we walk in. So the character of ourselves and one to another.
Any questions about today's discussion? That's not a question. I'm sorry, any comments or concerns about today's discussion?
Toda Rabbi for the lesson. Look forward for next week. Hallelujah.
Yeah. All right. With that being said, I yield. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. All hearts and minds are clear. Baruch Hashem Yahuah Eloheinu Melech Olam. Toda Rabbah Most High Yah. We are grateful for yet again another opportunity to have assembled today, to gather, to lift up your Hashem, to sing of your praises, to share with one another the wonderful and marvelous works you have been doing in our lives. And we are thankful for yet again another opportunity to hear from you through your servant. And again, as we look to correct the things in which you are not aligned with, as we are taking the time to remember how we treat one another, that we are remembering the instruction that we are given to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. And that Abiyah, we remember that each day we are given an opportunity to guard your commands, to be a light to others, so that perhaps one will see you, to hear from you, to know the peace in which we experience in walking with you each day. And so Abiyah, we thank you. We thank you for the lesson and the reminder that each day we have this responsibility, and that we are to remember to guard our gates, to be discerning of the things that are said, and that even as we speak to one another, to be mindful of our speech. And so we thank you today, Abiyah. We thank you for that, and continue to give praise to what is being done through the understanding that has been shared. And so, Yahuah, as we prepare to engage in fellowship, to break bread with one another, we thank you for the hands that prepared it and the effort that has gone forth. We are continually in prayer for our mishpachah near and abroad in this time, those who are coming into the way for the first time, or those who are seasoned and are continuing to travail for your kingdom. And so, Yahuah, we continue to keep one another uplifted in prayer until we are able to gather again. I humbly ask that your shalom be abundant in our homes. And we ask these things with belief in your power and your might through Hamashiach Yahusha. Hallel to Yahuah, Selah. Amen.
Shalom, shalom.